Hello everyone, welcome back to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And today we're gonna take a quick look at a Substack that I came across that made some incredible claims. So we're gonna jump straight into it and take a look at the cost of success for Russia in Kursk. And here we have the guy Sarcastosaurus. I will provide a link to Substack because it has a ton of interesting stuff, so I won't share all of it. That would not be fair to the guy himself. But we're gonna take a quick look at some of his claims, and god damn it, go read the Substack. It's interesting. Anyway, take a look what he says here. That the forces in Kursk were reinforced by between 35 to 40,000 troops. I've seen another source claim it's 45,000 in total, and I believe Syrski himself said that the Russians had some 60,000 troops all in Kursk. But I mean, so keep that in mind. But take a look what he says next. They suffered up to 20,000 casualties since the 6th of August. And this is why they lack troops for an all-out offensive that would push Ukraine out of Kursk. Right? I mean, 20,000 casualties? That is dead and wounded. I mean, that is insane. That is either 30% of your fighting force or as high as 50% of your fighting force. That's insane. Can that be true? Are those accurate, those numbers? 20,000 dead and wounded out of 40 to 60,000 troops in total? I mean, if that's true, then Russia is in a day or two, or in a week rather, they won't be able to conduct operations in Kursk without substantial reinforcements. And yes, that has been the goal of this operation all along, to force Russia to allocate manpower from other parts of the front line up here to fight Ukraine where Ukraine wants to fight, to force Russia to fight where Russia does not want to fight, weakening various parts of the front line and giving Ukraine opportunities to push forward all along and strike back if possible. But already after a month, I mean, I've always said from the beginning that this fight up here would go on, would continue well into 2025. And I entertained the idea that Ukraine might fall back to hold smaller areas that are more easily defended and not hold on to an entire bulge. But I mean, if Russia has lost 20,000 troops already in a month, I mean, they will need to resupply these units from somewhere, which might be why Putin has made the decree that they will recruit another 180,000 troops. But still, Jesus. So, I mean, it is a chicken race between Kursk and Pokrovsk. Who will break first? Will Ukraine abandon Kursk to reinforce Pokrovsk, or will Russia abandon Pokrovsk to reinforce Kursk? So that's the strategical chicken race at the moment. That's ongoing. So we'll see. But I mean, if Russia has lost 20,000, it looks like Russia will have to pull more and more forces from the front line, potentially abandoning Pokrovsk to handle Kursk. And but already, yeah, oh, really interesting if that's true. And the Substack also explains how the Russian advance this weekend, how that unfolded in the Substack. So click it, he explains it's really interesting. But basically, we have the 51st going out of Koronevo into Snagost with intent to conduct maneuver warfare. I kind of made a video about this a couple of days ago, by the way. And god damn it, I was spot on. So they begin. So what do you do in maneuver warfare on armored push? Well, you begin with a massive artillery barrage because you want to pin. This is fire and maneuver warfare. Nothing strange. Fire and maneuver has been a thing for centuries. But what you begin is to pin the enemy in place. And when you're on this level of maneuvers, you rely on artillery. When you're coming down to platoon level, then you have a support squad with a couple of machine guns that provides the fire support, and then you have the lighter squads doing the maneuvering. But on this massive level, it is artillery that provides the firepower to suppress, and then you have tanks and infantry fighting vehicles making up the maneuver element. So fire and maneuver, artillery hits Snagost and the surrounding areas, pinning the enemy in place, forcing them to duck into cover, and then you can move up with the armor at speed, like the Russians did along the highway, straight for Snagost. And when the artillery ends, as the armor gets close to the objective, well, the enemy pops their head up, and then they find out, holy shit, we have armor 50 to 100 meters away from our positions. We're in trouble. And what happens? Well, either you stay and fight and die, or you fall back, which the Ukrainians did, sensibly so. And the Russians, the plan was to conduct maneuver warfare. You push the enemy back, and as they're falling back, you push the initiative, push the momentum, because they're falling back, so you want to gain more ground and keep them falling back. So Russia made a sharp turn for Lyubimovka. Also, sensible. I mean, they took Snagost by surprise, overwhelmed the enemy, they fell back, they followed intent on taking Lyubimovka, because they want a crossroad over here. You can see this main highway. It supports the Ukrainians up here. So they wanted to make a classic maneuver warfare move, blitzkrieg, punch a hole in the enemy lines, coming behind them and force a large chunk of the enemy front line to fall back. There was only a problem though. This here is wide open territory, following a river in a valley. So here it's farmland, but you have forests and it's higher ground. So the Ukrainians who had fallen back, well, they set up positions on the high ground and started shooting like crazy into Russian columns trying to move to Yubimovka. So for some reason, it appears as if the Russian artillery did not protect the Russian advance by shelling the high ground like crazy, which you can't conduct maneuver warfare without artillery. You need to protect the tanks on the flanks by shelling hills, shelling forests, shelling towns, wherever the enemy can hide and fire anti-tank weapons at you, right? This did not, I know, of course, in this day and age, you also have drones flying in from every angle, so that was also part of it. But the 51st failed in making the second push to Yubimovka and had to fall back. And that is when the 155th joined in on the fight, pushed forward, crossed the river here, and entered, what was the name of the town? Ubikovka, I think, south of the Snagos River. Took that town and tried to attack Yubimovka from the south and southwest, sorry. And that is where we're at. Russia is now currently trying to reach Yubimovka from Snagos and from this vector here, Ubikovka. And Ukraine is holding on because the 155th and had the same issues as the 51st, trying to cross here. A bunch of angry Ukrainians on the southern flank opening fire as they pushed on. And it appears as if the Russian artillery has failed in protecting both of these advances on the flanks. Very strange, since they obviously knew what to do when they protected this push into Snagost, but somehow after that it all fell apart. And the most interesting thing I think that this Substack tells us is this push here from Ukraine into Glushkovo, because he claims that Ukraine is on the outskirts of Glushkovo, the capital of the county, which is kind of weird because the closest the mappers have located Ukrainian forces is 3 kilometers away from Glushkovo and nowhere near the actual outskirts. So we're gonna try and go into the details here a bit. So what the hell? There we go. As we I just explained, his claim is that they pushed in here, moved over here, fell back, but then the 155th took over and continued the push. I mean, it's sensible. You have troops in reserve, and you have one unit that is currently on a roll, and they hit some obstacles. They have to fall back, and then you just switch over to another unit that comes in from another angle. I mean, all in all, except for not being able to protect the flanks with artillery, the Russians did a good job, right? You can't say this is not halfway decent. Uh, and it shows on the maps as well. NOEL reports clearly shows how Russia has moved into Snagost and towards Yubimovka, and also how the Russians are in control of territory down here where we have the town of Ubikovka, right? And that would be this town here, as you can see on the ISW map, same deal. This is contested, claimed Russian advances through Ubikovka towards Yubimovka. And same thing goes for Andrew Perpetua. Contested area down here in Ubikovka and a move southward up to Yubimovka. Deep State does not show that, though. They have this push along the highway between Snagos and Lyubimovka, but nothing down here, according to Deep State. This is still Ukrainian territory. But I mean, it seems plausible. Goddamn headset. Anyways, yeah, it seems plausible, doesn't it? What he's telling us, that they made this push and, just went with the momentum, trying to maintain the initiative, ran into some trouble, reserves were in order, pushed in, and we're kind of seeing it on the maps, right? So, yeah, seems very plausible to me. Just don't understand why Russia didn't bomb the hell out of the high ground when they moved on from Snagos. And but I mean, this is the issue with maneuver warfare. It happens fast, right? So you punch out orders, if you grab here, you go there, you do this. And then, of course, support units, they need to keep up, right? Because, okay, the artillery probably knew they had their prepared fire positions, or fire missions, to support the push on Snagos. And then the order came, hey, they're moving out of Snagos. They're moving towards Yubimovka. You need to attack these positions. And then you have hundreds of artillery pieces that need to realign and what have you. And, receive accurate fire missions, where to fire and how big of a salvo they need to fire and everything. And the Russians, they're lacking mobile howitzers, self-propelled guns, so they need to do this by hand with towed artillery, right? So they need to pick these up and then turn them around with manpower and align them in the correct direction. So the Russians, they aren't capable at the moment to support such fast-moving operations, would be my guess. Because the move they've made makes absolute sense, right? It's just that they were unable to provide the fire support to give the maneuver element a chance to punch through the enemy positions. I mean, then it's also a matter of command style. Russians don't do mission command. Mission command is more applicable to the front line here at Yubimovka, where individual leaders, platoon level, company level, and so on, can make a decision. I'm going for this hill because I think I can break through. And then on battalion level, go, oh shit, we can make a breakthrough. Well, you're on the front line. You see things better than I do. I will support you, and hopefully you will make that push through the enemy lines. The Russians aren't doing that. They wait for command from above before they make any decisions. But that's a different thing entirely. But yes, his claims appears to be supported by the mappers, is what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, that's the push by the 51st and 155th in towards Yubimovka. But now we're gonna take a look at this, and I think it's interesting because of his claims that the Ukrainians are outside of Glushkovo. So yeah, let's take a closer look at that as well. So the other mappers, the closest they have Ukraine to Glushkovo is Andrew Perpetua. He has Ukraine at roughly 2.5 kilometers from Glushkovo. That is close. That is damn close. Uh, Less than 2 miles away. What is it? 1.5 mile? I think it's 1.5 mile away. So yeah, that might line up with the claim that Ukraine is on the outskirts of Glushkovo. Then we have Deep State at the closest. They have Ukraine at 4.5 kilometers away. So that's what, 2.5 miles, something like that. So outskirts, I think we can safely assume that Ukraine is in the vicinity of Glushkovo. Other mappers have Ukraine further back, but I mean, they are operating in this area. I think it's safe to assume. So 3 to 5 kilometers away from Glushkovo, I think is a fair assessment. And we take a look at the Novel Reports map. I mean, according to them, Ukraine has, I guess this is the controlled territory, and they don't list contested areas. I guess is a fair point to make. But this distance here from Veseloye, they have Veseloye as in Ukrainian control. No other mapper does that. But from Veseloye to Glushkovo, it's like something like 5-6 kilometers. But if you take a look at ISW, kind of lines up with Deep State. They have Veseloye as under Russian control. It used to be Ukrainian and now it's Russian, so Russia may have made a strong push into Veseloye and reclaimed it, if we are to believe ISW. Then we have the Ukraine control map. Lines up with Andrew Perpetua, I think. And if we use that farm as a point of reference, they are slightly south of it, but from the farm to Glushkovo we have 3.3 kilometers, so add a couple of hundred meters to the Ukrainian line, and we're at 3.5 kilometers roughly, right? So outskirts, I don't know, but it does appear as if Ukraine is, like I said, operating in this area. If we are to compare all the mappers, and no definitive point where we can say this is how far Ukraine is, but they are in this area. This blue here is a geolocated Ukrainian vehicle. Andrew Perpetua has it on his map as well. So they are clearly moving out here, and I don't doubt that they are operating in this area, fighting, probably doing reconnaissance, trying to establish lines and fighting Russian positions. And also, Ukrainian control map, he's managed to figure out one of the units making this push and position them here for some reason, and it's the 95th Air Assault Brigade. So some heavy duty guys, well trained, well equipped, are taking part in this push in towards Veseloye and Glushkovo. And in the Substack article, he also mentions firms, NASA's fire emergency control map thing. So this is NASA's map. Here we have Koronevo, Snagost, Lyubimovka, and it's the 16th of August. I'm recording this on the 17th. Lots of fires in Lyubimovka as expected. Down here, Ubikovka, right? And so quite clearly, yesterday, we had a lot of fires going on in Lyubimovka as well as down in Ubikovka. And this might be Ukrainian artillery, and this is probably a combination of artillery and vehicles blowing up and what have you. So this is quite clearly the front line, where Russia is trying to push in towards the center of the Ukrainian locations or territory with maneuver warfare. And as you can see, take a look at this. They made this push out of the blue, took everyone by surprise, supported this push across open fields with artillery. that pinned the Ukrainians, and that allowed the Russians to cross the open fields, right? And I mean, take a look at this. Then they tried this move here, and take a look at all the open fields, all the open lanes of fire, line of sight. And this is high ground, and here you have forests and what have you. This is where Russia should have directed every artillery piece in the area towards primarily this forest here, and just blown it to hell. And then they could have made a move across the open fields, also firing at the town down here. So, I mean, while they're moving, artillery needs to hit this forest and needs to hit this town. And then they stand a chance of reaching. They also need to bombard Lyubimovka, obviously. But then they stand a chance of actually pushing through open space like this. God damn it. A brand new computer, $3,000, and I didn't get a new headset. What the hell? Anyway, it's just a thing on my channel at this point, this goddamn headset. So that's why. Where was I? Yeah, so to cross a wide open space like this, you need to give it proper support, that push. And you might say, I mean, it's a fool's errand in this day and age with drones as well. I mean, when the surprise is over, Ukraine will just fly in with every drone there is to cover this area, which they obviously did as well. But still, you still need to throw in artillery north and south and on the objective to make a push like this. And Russia apparently failed in doing that at an extreme cost as well, since Russia lost a whole bunch of vehicles trying to push across these open fields. Now, taking a look at Glushkovo and the push towards Veseloye, again, NASA's map with all the fires and things burning. God damn it, sorry for that. I need some coffee, I think. Nice. Anyway, Glushkovo, Veseloye, where Ukraine has they pushed in through here and pushed up to Veseloye, and as you can see, quite clear there's fighting going on, as well as down here along the border towns here. Important border towns, this is where Ukraine can bring in logistics and resources via the highway system, and they can also utilize this railroad to unload troops here on the Ukrainian side, and then get everything onto trucks and move further in to support the fighting. Remember the farm that I used as a point of reference before? It's located here, roughly 3.5 kilometers from Glushkovo, and as you can see, nothing. There's no fires going on between Veseloye and Glushkovo on the 16th yesterday. But fighting is ongoing in Veseloye itself. This is interesting. This is right smack in the middle, everything two small towns north of Tetkino. As we know, Ukraine moved in with infantry south of Tetkino. But no idea. I mean, I'm guessing Ukraine is bombarding potentially supply depots and command centers and what have you up here to disrupt the Russian support of the fighting in Tetkino. This could be something similar, but I think this is out in the middle of nowhere, so maybe this is an artillery strike at troops on the move, potentially. But the most important thing to take note of is that we have no fires between the main front, the main fighting at Veseloye, and the objective of Glushkovo. And taking a look on the 15th and 14th this weekend here, lots of fires reported on in Veseloye, spotted here. I mean, obviously artillery strikes, vehicles blowing up, heavy fighting ongoing in this area where Ukraine is trying to push in and force the Russians back. Probably artillery strikes up here at Russian locations, supply depots, troops on the move. But again, nothing between Veseloye and Glushkovo. 14th, the same, nothing between Glushkovo and Veseloye. But as you can see, the intensity of the fires on the 14th, as Ukraine was well and truly pushing in, trying to grab Veseloye. So this appears to be along the river, these fires here. So this could be artillery strikes aimed at pontoon bridges and what have you, and Russian concentrations of forces trying to move in from the north to support Glishkovo, would be my guess. No clue, but you know. But the main thing is there is nothing going on between Veseloy and Glishkovo, and there never has been. So I think it's safe to assume that Ukraine has not pushed north of this farm, and they are focusing on trying to grab Veseloye before they can make any move north towards Glishkovo. And Russia is doing their damnedest to hold on to this town, because they know if that town falls, the road is literally open all the way to Glishkovo. But again, I have to recommend Sarcastosaurus and his Substack. Click the link, read the article. Really interesting. It was written on the 16th, and I'm recording this on the 17th. And like I said, his claim is that the Russians have suffered some 20,000 casualties since August 6th up in Kursk. It's insane numbers if it's true. I mean, that's between 30 to 50% of their fighting forces in Kursk. And if Ukraine has managed to pull that off, Russia will have to allocate massive manpower to make up for those losses, and that will weaken other parts of the front line drastically. And well, not much else to add. I might provide a link to my video where I was talking about maneuver warfare in Kursk, since this guy seems to back it up. But all that aside, click the link, read his Substack. It's really interesting, like I said. And I mean, if the guy is right that Russia suffered 20,000 casualties already in Kursk, holy hell. Has Ukraine given the Russians a proper wallop up in Kursk? Anyway, that's the end of it. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.